Alright, so here's where we're picking up. What ended up happening is my MacBook Pro battery is acting really finicky, and then a couple days later it posted a service battery warning. And I let that sit for probably about a good couple months, and then I figured out, like, I wasn't doing any stressful tasks, and then when I started, like, trying to render a video or play a game or something on it, it would crash. And so that's where we're picking up right now. I explained in the video that whenever it pulls over like 2000 milliamps, it'll crash once the battery gets to a certain state. And that's what ends up happening. So here's a quick little clip of me trying to troubleshoot what's going on. And then in the end, I just figure out, hey, let's just swap the battery completely. Alright, there you guys go. You just saw it. Whatever battery percentage it was at, it just died. So completely dead. Like, it's pretty cooking. But here's the thing, you turn it back on, it will power back on. I'm holding the option key because I have dual boot and a couple other things enabled. But look at that, crashes, and then it can boot back up again. That's weird. Alright, so here we go. I begin by starting to disassemble the actual laptop. There's a couple case screws around the outside. I'm going to end up linking a iFixit tutorial on this because off to the side I had it pulled up as I was going through this. That was really helpful. There were a couple steps in there that aren't completely necessary, but I can see why they were in there. So when I was doing this, I would say it was a lot. It was a lot for me to take in because I've never worked on anything like as proprietary as this MacBook, where you can't exactly just go out and like swap in an aftermarket part. Because what I swapped in, I think I just found it on Amazon for the battery. I have no idea where it came from, but when I plugged it in, everything was all set up. I'll go all through all this later in the video once it's completed. There is this like power attachment board that you have to pull back, and I found that it was kind of weird because there was like a CPU socket technology, like for Intel, how in the socket you have those little pins that stick out and touch on the little plate. There's this little square chip that you have to uninstall, and I put it off to the right over there, you can see it. That clip, it's very weird because you can't really damage it or else the whole thing's not going to work. And yet I removed it because it kind of makes sense if you're installing the battery again, like once you're reinstalling it, that you don't actually accidentally power the system up while you're installing it, which I can see where that's coming from. But one note is when I'm reinstalling it, that make sure you have it in the right orientation because you can put it in backwards. So just look at the pins and make sure the pins line up perfectly. So what I'm doing now is I'm undoing the speakers on the left and right. There was like this little foam stuff over like the corner screws. I don't know what it was for, but I put it back. Oh, I put one of them back. And yeah, those speakers, the left one, well, when you're looking at it, the left one, the first one I took off, that one it's like a little adhesive to the battery, so you're just going to need to pull a little bit more on that to separate it from the battery because the wires are attached, and when you replace the battery, you want to be able to remove it. So now I'm beginning the actual disassembly process of the battery. I'm taking out the
like 3 screws holding the main partition, or I don't even know what that would called, the main cell right there in the middle, and that's held in by 6 screws, which I don't get why they did that, but they didn't attach everything else. Like, they only attached it with that, they attached that one with screws, but they attached all the ones I'm trying to take out right now with adhesive. And that adhesive is a, not really, it's a pain, definitely, but if you just wedge like a screwdriver, or like iFixit recommends one of those little pry tools, it'll come right off. You just gotta be careful. Don't force it too much. Just keep poking it, and then pry up, then keep poking it and pry up. So here you can see that it's a little bit more difficult because of the sheer size of that battery, but I think, yeah, I grab an aluminum ruler, and that worked super well. That is exactly what I wanted it to do, and you just basically pry up, then push in a little bit deeper, and then you can separate the whole thing without damaging anything. And yeah, you could buy the specific tools, and it might make your job easier, but this was definitely, like, I don't regret using all this stuff, because I got it done. And when you're doing this, you don't have to worry about that extra adhesive, because at least on the batteries I bought, they had its own set. Like, it came with its own adhesive strip pads on the backs of the batteries, so all you needed to do was just drop them in there. And that's about it for the whole disassembly process. You just lift it off all in one piece, and then you're good. So I tried to clean up all the adhesive crap, but alright, let's install the new one. Yeah, so right when I started off doing this, I was probably just a massive idiot. I just wanted to unbox that battery as fast as possible, so I took off that initial like little covering strip, and not until after I took it off did I realize that it would probably hold the batteries in place until I put it on like this. Like, see how I just kind of plopped it down and they were dangling everywhere? Like, if I were to place it in, then remove it, it would make a lot more sense. So I recommend doing that instead of what I did. But it was a pretty simple installation process, putting everything back in. You just gotta put the 6 screws on the main cell, and then just make sure those other tiny batteries in the corners are all lined up, because once you get that adhesive down, I bet that it's not gonna come back off and you're gonna get it in one piece. So you see now I'm just putting in those super tiny little screws to hold it in, and then after I was done with that, I put the SSD tray back in. That's what that is, and it's actually a weird place. I did not think that's where it would be. I thought it would be like mounted to the motherboard somehow, but whatever. So then, yeah, there's the speaker back in, and you just gotta watch out by the screws closest to the trackpad. When you tighten those up, do not tighten those too much, because I tightened actually both of mine. I didn't learn from a mistake. I tightened both of them just a little bit too tight, and then it started to crack the plastic just a little. It didn't break off or anything. I just saw like a little stress fracture create. So just watch out for that. Another thing that is you gotta make sure you do is all the clips that you take off, like, so the speaker clips are underneath a couple of them, so just make sure you put those speaker clips in, because you cannot do them the other way around. And then now I'm installing that little like square pin thingy, and I actually realized, I panicked a little because I realized I flipped it around in my hand and I had no idea which orientation it goes into. But just look at the pinouts and the pin like contact points, and you can figure out exactly where it goes. And then there's one big screw that goes straight through the little pin thingy, and then you can put the rest of the screws holding the main power attachment board in. And then, yeah, I just throw the little OEM sticker on there just so it doesn't short anything out. And I end up just one last little pat down of all the connections and everything. And then, yeah, you just gotta push in at these 2 points about in the middle of the like frame part, and then it'll click in, you'll hear it. And the only difference on the back is there's 2 screws, the 2 tiny ones that I took out, they go to the under the screen, and then the rest of them are all the same, and those are all pretty simple. And just a quick note, all the tools I'm using came with the battery. I didn't have to buy them separate, so I thought it was a pretty good deal. It was like $50 for battery instead of like taking it to Apple, and that's like $200 I thought it was. So there you go, that's it. And it works. I was panicking so much. It powered straight up, everything worked, and I'm completely happy with the result. I know this was a different video. I wasn't really planning on this video, but so I hope you somehow benefited from this, and thanks for watching.